Hi, welcome to our Heavenly Being series, where we are taking a look at what the scriptures have to say concerning the nature, work, and destiny of the heavenly order.
Hello, all, and welcome to our walkthrough talk through Heavenly Beings. It's a three-part, perhaps four-part series if the introduction goes a little longer than we would hope for on Heavenly Beings. And when I say Heavenly Beings, I mean exactly that. I'm referring to the spiritual beings that live in the heavens, the class of sentient beings that God created that are superior to human beings, but of course are lower than the infinite God. And the outline that I'm going to be following actually is provided by Ariel Ministries. This is Messianic Bible Study 073, or Messianic Bible Study 73, Angelology, the Doctrine of the Elect Angels. This is a free PDF that can be downloaded. It's only about 27 pages, free of charge from Ariel Ministries. Please feel free to Google that, Ariel Ministries, and you can just type in Angelology or Elect Angels or MBS 073, whichever you choose to, and you'll be able to download this PDF for free. And this is an outstanding work. I mean, they did such an outstanding job on it. I definitely wanted to use a resource. I agree with almost everything in this, and I figured, hey, no one has a monopoly on truth, and when it comes to sharing the truth of God's revelation, plagiarism is always authorized. Now, for the few things that I don't agree with, I'll be sure to point them out and then explain why. So the way I would like to do this is we'll go through angels proper, or the Malak, the Malakim. These are the heavenly beings, the celestial beings that are named as angels in the scripture. And then there are seraphim, which are a class of celestial being that I believe scripture distinguishes completely different and separate from angels. And then the cherubim, or the cherubim, which would be the pinnacle of celestial beings. Um, and that's how we'll go through this. Now, the reason I would also like to go ahead and throw out another plug here for Ariel Ministries, the Messianic teachings, outstanding doctrine, outstanding scripture. They understand the free grace gospel, really good in taking scripture within their context. You know, I wouldn't name a ministry if they had not been proven through understanding the freeness of the gospel and how to take sound doctrine within the context of its original language, of its original use in the audience that it was intended. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just go ahead and lay out some parameters here. Now, this is not going to be an extensive, just end-all, be-all study that we're doing here. This is kind of a brief laying of the foundation to get a biblical view of what God has revealed about the heavenly beings. Um, for example, there are a number of wrong views regarding angels. For instance, it has been taught that angels are merely transient emanations from God or permanent emanations from God. It's also been taught that angels are actually glorified human beings. That is, when a believer dies and goes to heaven, he becomes an angel. Among unbelievers, it's common that angels aren't real at all. Now, they believe that Yeshua mentioned angels just to accommodate himself to the popular thinking of that day, but he himself knew better. And again, this is all just hogwash. Um, Heavenly beings, or angels, I'm going to use angels as a very generic term for any celestial being at this point until we get a little further. The scripture is clear, very, very, very clear in the Old Testament, New Testament, that they do exist. They are real. They are persons. They are people. They're people. They're not human beings. They are superior to human beings, but they're persons. They're not just emanations. They have a will. They can do things. They cannot do things. They obey. Some are disobedient and that are in rebellion against God. They have emotions. They experience joy. They sing. They experience fear. They experience anger. So they have will. They have emotion. They have personality. These are persons. They're spirit persons, but they're persons. They have bodies. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, no, spirits don't have bodies. But again, we don't know too much about angelology, but from what we see, angels have very distinct forms and images. Now, their bodies are not composed of flesh and blood and bone like we humans are. They don't seem to be composed of matter the way we are, whereas it would appear that their bodies are composed of light, but they still seem to have a corporeal body. Just because you're not composed of flesh and blood and bone does not mean that you don't have a corporeal body. So these are some things to talk about. I also want to note that this is going to be focusing on the elect angels. These are the holy angels of God that we'll be walking through. Right? So first, let's start off on letter I, where we speak on the existence of angels. Now, does the Bible really teach that angels exist? Angels are mentioned in Scripture 273 times in 33 of the 66 books of the Bible, which means that half of the books of the entire Bible mention angels. In the Old Testament, angels are mentioned 108 times in 18 books: Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Judges, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Job, Psalms, Ecclesiastes, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, and Zechariah. It should be noted that in the Old Testament, angels are not only mentioned in the apocalyptic type books, but also in the prophetical, the historical, and the poetical books. So people who try to discount, the sons of God of Genesis chapter 6, saying, oh, those aren't heavenly beings, those are human beings, we're Sethites. And then you say, well, no, B'nai Ha-Elohim is only used here and also in the book of Job, and nobody disputes that the book of Job is referring to celestial beings. They're heavenly beings. And they may say, oh, well, Job is not historical narrative. It's a poetic book. It's a wisdom book. It's not going to fly. Job is a historical narrative of actual individuals who actually lived. Job actually was afflicted by an actual celestial being named Satan, who was among actual other heavenly beings who presented themselves before an actual God who was actually ruling the universe on his throne. So, and even if that wasn't the case, let's say somebody wouldn't be willing to accept that, whether it's historical narrative, whether it's poetic, or whether it's the wisdom books, they're all here. Now, in the New Testament, angels are mentioned a total of 165 times in 15 books: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So all four of the Gospels, the book of Acts, Romans, 2 Corinthians, Galatians, Colossians, 2 Thessalonians, 1 Timothy, 1 and 2 Peter, Jude, and of course the Revelation. In fact, every writer of the New Testament mentions angels in their writings, with the exception of the writer of Hebrews. And the writer of Hebrews brings up Satan, who is the chief authority over the fallen angels. So even then, the writer of Hebrews is still accounting for heavenly beings as actual, literal creatures who exist, who have volition, they have will, they have emotion, they express these things. These are actual persons, spirit persons that actually exist. Now I didn't say they are mentioned in every book, but they are mentioned by every writer. For example, the Apostle Paul wrote the most books of the New Testament. Paul mentions them. John wrote the Gospel of John, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, and the Revelation. And John mentions them often in his writings. Now, furthermore, and the most chief evidence of all, is that Messiah Jesus himself clearly taught the existence of angels and referred to them in every gospel. Matthew chapter 13, verse 39 is an example. Mark 12:25, Luke 12:8, verses 9, and John chapter 1, verse 51. If he taught the existence of angels, what opinions do believers have in light of the Messiah's teaching? So there are 5 options. First, that Yeshua was deceived, that Jesus didn't know. Though angels do not really exist, he thought that they did, and he taught that they did, and he was deceived. So we're getting rid of first. That's just preposterous. He was God incarnate, divinely revealed truth by God. He was not deceived. Secondly, that Jesus was being deceptive. Jesus himself did not believe in angels, and he knew that angels did not exist, so then he was merely being deceptive. And some people have actually taught this as well. We know better than that. Messiah Jesus has never sinned. He cannot lie under any circumstances. He's the very essence of truth. And so we know that the second option is just balderdash as well. Now here's one that you'll actually hear more common. Thirdly is that Jesus was merely accommodating himself. The concept of accommodation teaches that Jesus knew better. He was not trying to be deceptive, but he was simply accommodating his teachings to the common beliefs of that day so that people would understand the main truths of what he was saying. Perhaps this seems a little better than saying he was deceptive, but actually it comes out the exact same way in the end. Jesus, who is the essence of truth, the way, the truth, and the life, instead of confronting a demonic culture that is reveling in things that are not true, instead of revealing them as not true, is entertaining them as if they were true in order to convey truths It's just meaningless, and it's not the Messiah of the Bible. It's not the Jesus of Nazareth that is revealed to us in the Holy Scriptures. It's not the one that is prophesied in the Old Testament. It's not the one that is revealed to us in the New Testament. And here's fourth. Fourth one is that Jesus never mentioned the existence of angels and did not teach the existence of angels, and that the writers of the Gospels simply put those words into his mouth, and that it's not Jesus who was being deceptive, but it was actually his apostles. And we know that the apostles speak on the divine authority and leadership invested in them by the Messiah. And so that's just Boulder Dash. We're not going with that. And then finally, we'll go with the fifth option. And this is the right one. And that is the reason that Messiah Jesus taught about the existence of angels is because they really do exist. And he taught their existence because they exist. And he speaks on them. He confronts evil ones. He casts them out. And that's pretty much what we have here. Now, we'll go through some names, and then we'll break down angels, the fact of their creation, the timing of their creation, their power and their position, number, their abode and sphere, and we'll get really nice into this next time. So that concludes the introduction. I look forward to hearing from you all next time, where we can go through this. I'm really excited for this study coming up. Until then, be safe, God bless you, and Maranatha.